Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Kristie Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. Hi, Kristie.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am okay. I teach on Tuesday night, so it's a quick turnaround for these Wednesday morning recordings. But I'm okay.
I have my first class in 3 hours, so that's exciting.
We're in week 2.
We're going to continue on the skills. So we've done the reflective responding, which is 3 different skills, and we're trying to structure them by the what, why, and how.
Yes.
And I think that helps kind of organize us a little bit. And
I don't know if you guys have noticed, we can be a little squirrely.
we tend to go off on tangents, and part of that is because we really like talking about this stuff and don't think about it as we would perhaps if we were giving a presentation or talking in class. I think it's more of a conversation, which is fun and lovely, but we're going to try and organize ourselves a little bit more, especially as we are going through the skills aspect, so that you have a really deep understanding and hopefully, whether you are a play therapist currently or a supervisor of play therapists, someone who's wanting to go into play therapy, caregiver, teacher, I think all of these skills can be really helpful regardless of what career you're in or what you're doing at the time. So today we're talking about choice giving.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we want to start by saying this is a skill that we may not use as frequently in the playroom as we may when we're working with guiding parents. And this may be a skill we teach parents more than we utilize in the playroom. And so we do want to acknowledge that from the get-go so that you guys are aware that, at least for myself and Maggie, this is a skill that may be less common in the actual playroom.
I do use it a lot as a caregiver. I also have started using it a lot in my life and for myself. And that it can feel very empowering to believe that you have a choice over what you do in your experience. And I think sometimes we don't feel that we have choices in certain spaces, but we do. And so I think this is really helpful just as a human being to remember.
Yes.
We have choices. And sometimes they're not choices we like.
Yes. Yeah. So. Maggie, so how would you define or describe choice giving?
Yeah. I think when I talk about choice giving, it is allowing the child to make choices as to what they are doing within their space, within their bodies, within the relationship that are acceptable, not like that seems like an icky word, but like something that's not dangerous, that they're safe choices that really allows them to have a lot of autonomy and in this play space and within our relationship, hopefully is a sense of empowerment so that they get to decide, and really trying to allow them and demonstrate to them that they have that capacity within them and that I trust that capacity within them so that they can make choices as to what they do in the space. How do you describe it?
I often talk about choices as a way, or it's a skill that we utilize in the playroom to help children stay in the lead and feel like they have the freedom to make decisions about their actions, play, behaviors, language, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
That it's really being guided, and that the child is the one who has the sense of control over these pieces in the playroom. I also agree with you that one of the challenges of choice giving is making sure that when we do give a choice, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that it is acceptable to both myself and the child. Or when I work with parents, that because if it's not, it's considered a threat or manipulation. And so we want to keep it out of that realm, and we want to keep it to be more in the empowering range of options for the child. So that typically is how I would describe it.
And I think inherently within child centered, it is about the child's choices that they're making, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
us coming into space and saying, we're going to talk about X today, or we're going to do this worksheet today. And really, when I think holistically about children,
Mm-hmm.
I think even if we realistically look at ourselves as adults, there are certain things that we don't have choices over. And children have very few opportunities to make choices for themselves. When they're younger, it's really, maybe they get to make small choices like what clothes they're going to wear that day. And the choices kind of get bigger, but a lot of their lives are very structured by adults, the school system, right? You have to do certain things. And as adults, we have to do certain things. We have to go to work at a certain time. We have to do these things.
Yeah.
So recognizing when you have choices and allowing children that opportunity, whether it's in the play space or within the home, is really empowering, I think.
There's a lot of freedom. It I think exemplifies that the child has capability and the worthiness to have a say in the matter. And a lot of children often feel like they don't have a say in the matter. So it does really empower children internally to feel like they are capable and they can handle situations, hard decisions, whatever it may be.
And it demonstrates a lot of trust,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of trust. And
Yes,
and when you feel that someone trusts in you, that helps you trust in yourself too. And we're hoping to foster that internal locus of control and help children recognize the capacities that they have within themselves. And so providing them the opportunity to make choices, I think helps foster that.
I agree.
I find it to be maybe not something that we do a lot in the playroom. I think we do it every session in the playroom. And we'll talk about in the like how we do that later. But it's something that we do within every session in nature of allowing them to lead. So we may not be saying choices all of the time and giving them choices all of the time, but inherently by letting them lead the session, they are making choices for themselves and we are honoring those choices.
I was going to say, I think CCPT is structured that way.
Yeah.
So we may not need to use it a lot in the playroom because the style in which we engage with children in the playroom already naturally has this idea of the child being in charge and
Mm-hmm.
in control in the playroom. So we don't have to use it a ton. There are a few times we do use it in the
Yeah.
playroom, but it's not as common as maybe our reflective responding skills that we've talked about, or maybe like returning responsibility, those empowering creativity choice or creativity responses. Those skills I think we may use more frequently in the playroom, but I think this is an important skill to understand and know how to utilize while in the play session, because there are times you do need it.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're absolutely right that it is really foundational with the heart of child centered and what we do in the spaces. And it's it's so interesting, as we break apart these skills. And I know that we do this when we teach our classes, but even within this space, there are many overlaps as to the purpose and the
Mhm.
rationale and the theoretical understanding as to why we do them. And so I think that's important to hone in on. And also you may recognize that we may be repeating some things from one skill to the other, and it's really getting to the heart of what we do. And we want the philosophy and belief system of child centered to infuse all of the skills that we're using. And so you may hear us repeating some of them, and it's not because it's because it's inherently embedded into what we do.
Well, it's our way of being, right? So because it is a really natural skill for us, it sometimes is hard to tease them apart because they all work in tandem. They don't work independently. I don't sit there as a play therapist and go, choice giving. I haven't given choices in a while. Let me give a choice this time. Or it's in a rotation and I give A skill, B skill, C skill, choice giving, right? That's not how child centered works. And so it is sometimes, well, let me rephrase that. I also think it's awesome that we have multiple skills that we can use to tackle the same issue within the playroom. And
Mhm.
so some of the repetition you're hearing is because you have choices in how you're going to respond in the playroom of what skills you want to utilize or what skills feel more natural to you in the play session and what may work best for a child. And so to me, that is awesome instead of I have to memorize this and then I memorize this and I memorize this and I use this only when this happens. And I know we have multiple skills that we can use, interject at different times. So,
And that's probably why we gravitated towards CCPT, and it feels so whole and a part of us, because it would feel very unnatural and uncomfortable if I was told, okay, this is session 3, you have to go in and do this.
mhm,
Feels antithetical to who I am and what I believe. And so I think that's also probably why we gravitate towards something that's not prescriptive and is focused on a deep understanding of the theory and what we believe about humans and about children and
yeah.
therapy. So,
So let's talk a little bit more about the why we use choice giving.
mhm,
So, Maggie, what is one reason you use choice giving?
mhm.
If you had to pinpoint one, what would that be?
I think one of them that I think is really important is the ability to foster a child's sense of control. And
Mhm.
whether it, whatever circumstance they are experiencing, from a deep, a significant trauma where their autonomy was completely taken away from them, to struggling within a school system with a lot of structure. What I really enjoy about this is offering a child the opportunity to have control over themselves and their space. And
Yeah.
and so many things in life feel really you can feel powerless over. And so being able to offer that sense of control and power where they can develop that or experience that within themselves, and that their voice matters and that their perspective matters and their choices matter, I think that's something that I really, really gravitate towards. What about you?
No, I agree with that. I think that that idea that, that they can overcome and regain a sense of importance in situations is really important. And I really do love that choice giving gives them a voice. For me, one of the things that I like about choice giving, or that I think is important about choice giving, is this idea that it really helps kids feel capable
Mm-hmm.
and that they have the ability. So it can build their self esteem. I've seen so many kids where this raises their sense, their confidence, their self worth, those components, because they start to figure out that they do have a voice and their voice is listened to, attuned to, and accepted. So then that starts to feel good. And they're like, oh, yeah, I do know how to fix things. I do know how to come to conclusions, all of those pieces. And I want to also acknowledge that kids are really creative. So they come to solutions differently than maybe I would choose to do something. And I also love that because it really outgrows me, that idea of as they become more confident, they're willing to take more risks, they're willing to be more vulnerable in the playroom. And I think that's a really important component of our jobs as play therapists, is to help facilitate that inner worth of a child.
I completely agree. And the thing that popped into mind, and maybe this is just where I am in this space, but I think it's so important because we receive messages a lot that we're not doing things right, or we're not coming, even just in school, you didn't write out this problem. And something that I'm battling even as an adult in this space in my new leadership roles, right, is I don't think I'm capable. I'm not this, I'm not that, whether that's from messages that I've received from other people or not, but I'm choosing to do things in ways that are different within my leadership role, and the empowerment that I feel as a result of that, and the capacity that the trust in myself that's developing as a mid-career professional is really, if I'm feeling that as an adult, how wonderful to be able to give that to a child, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to trust themselves, and how will that impact their trajectory and their self-esteem and their self-worth, and how they view themselves, I think is really cool.
Well, and I think that goes back to the foundation of one of our goals as child-centered play therapists, right? When I would conceptualize what you were saying, Maggie, this idea that we get messages all the time, right? And how we internalize those messages, and then how those other people's messages become our own self-talk. And then and that could be our worst enemy sometimes, right? Because how I might be hearing things is then going to be skewed by that lens of how I feel about myself. And that this skill could help counter that.
Mm-hmm.
Feels really hopeful and empowering, because maybe that message was not intended to be internalized the way that we took it,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it was, right? But if
We
it's
can
saying that
choose.
I'm not good enough, I'm not valued, my voice really doesn't matter, people question me all the time, so maybe I really don't know what I'm sharing, right? Like those, all of those would diminish who we are as individuals or our sense of worth. And that this skill can counter that
Mm-hmm.
is exciting.
Yes. And I think it also demonstrates a deep respect and trust for the child,
Oh my gosh, yes.
that I am not going to force you to talk about something that you don't feel comfortable talking about. I trust that you are going to bring into this space what it is that you need, and process this in the ways that are important to you, and really helps support that belief in self by us believing in them and giving them choices. They can begin to believe in themselves, and
Yeah.
really respecting the child, that they are the expert on
Mm-hmm.
themselves, that I'm not going to come in and say, your mom told me that this happened at school, so we need to talk about it. That I'm trusting that they are going to take into this space what it is that they need, and also allows them that independence and self-direction within a really safe and supportive space. So those are kind of two things, but similar.
Yeah, and I think the second piece really talks to about how that may strengthen our relationship with children. And when children feel trusted by an adult, and they feel that their voice and opinions matter to someone else, right? That's really going to strengthen the alliance that you have with the child. And so I think that is an important component, and helps, right, the child convey the message that the child has capability, that the child is believed in, valued, accepted. And even if they fail, that's okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because sometimes when we make choices, we don't make the best choice for ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay, right? Because sometimes we have to learn through doing instead of
Yeah.
learning through being told.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important component as well.
I want you to remind me of that, because I have a funny story about how that happened in the how we do that.
Right?
But I think what you're saying too is that it builds that personal responsibility too,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes.
they are helping develop their own decision making skills, that they are taking responsibility, which is important, that you
Mm-hmm.
have to learn. You don't have that. I don't like the way that sounds, but that they're developing
You
their,
get the opportunity to learn.
well, I don't even know if it's like learning is the right thing, but developing their
Well,
own.
maybe experiencing.
There we go.
Because, like, I often think of how have I learned things in life? I've learned through my own experiences, not being told by other people. And if I don't trust people, I'm really not going to listen to them, right? I'm going to have more faith in myself. And so sometimes that learning by doing is the more powerful experience
Hmm.
than being told or the message being conveyed that I know better than you. And I can be kind of stubborn. So when people come at it like Maggie knows this about me, like I can
Speaking of
have
stubborn,
a
that's
lot
a give it
of,
face.
I, I, I don't like to be told I can't do something, right? And so I think it also can create power struggles. And by giving choices, we're saying I don't want to be in a power battle with you. I want you to have this idea that you can come up with ideas, you can come up with solutions. All of those components also come out within choice giving, but
Hmm.
it makes me have to check myself, right? Because I know that about myself, and so I sometimes do have to sit there and be like, why am I getting upset about this? Like, why am I like standing firmer in whatever is happening right now? And one of the things I love about one of my mentors, Dr. Sue Bratton, is she always said, in this moment, my most important thing is to preserve the relationship. So, what's happening right now, and what do I need to do to preserve the relationship? Which might be to do some self reflecting and step back and really value the child and what they're offering and why. Why is this important to them? Why is it important to me? And most importantly, what's important about our relationship, and is my stance more important than the child's stance in this moment? And oftentimes, no, it's not. No, there's a few times that it is, right, because of safety or because of other things, but it is something that I have to remind myself periodically, and that I really come from that mindset. Like, I want this child to leave empowered. I want this child to leave feeling prized and valued. So what do I need to do? And really good members of society. So that's also in the back of my mind. So I'm not folding at everything, because some things we just need to learn the hard way.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
so,
when we learn it, like when we experience that and we make a choice that perhaps we want, I think, and you've said this multiple times, we want the playroom to be a safe space to make mistakes or
yeah,
maybe
trial and error.
choices that maybe aren't choices that we would make again because there is no judgment. There's no, it's not going to change the way in which we care, our empathy levels for this child, or our desire to understand them. And so, what a wonderful space to be able to make choices and try things out so that you can build that responsibility within yourself, that personal responsibility and trust in yourself within, and being able to take ownership over those choices. Like, oh, that didn't work. You're like, oh, yeah, you tried it away and it didn't work the way you thought it would.
Or kids are super determined and they get it to work. It just may not be the easiest way to get something to work. And that's okay too.
And that fosters perseverance.
Right? And determination and grit and tenacity, which is a resiliency skill. And those are all important in the play space and building for a child too, because guess what? The world is not easy.
Yeah.
And things don't always work out the way we want them to. So to know that they have that growth mindset. So for my school teachers who are listening, or those that have kids where growth mindset is a really important concept within their classrooms, or that's something that the schools are teaching them, right? This skill links into that too, because it does grow that idea of perseverance, tenacity, grit, problem solving. That
Mhm.
all happens within this skill set as well.
And I think in addition to that, or in conjunction with that, it also helps with that emotional regulation piece, that when you're in a space where there is acceptance and belief and trust, that it doesn't, that you can try something out and you can have a choice and fall apart, and you can try again. And really kind of, I think that trust in itself helps reduce the anxiety and frustration that you can feel either when you have a choice and you feel like you can't live up to that choice, or when you're not given choice. I think.
So it sounds like, yeah, you're talking about also that emotional regulation piece.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment when things are going well or not going well, or we have big feelings about something, and how do we learn to regulate those emotions so that they can both make a choice, but also stick with the choice that they've chosen in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if it's disappointing.
Even when it's disappointing, because there is that sense of safety within it, the relationship in the space, so that they can explore those feelings. Mm-hmm. When I think sometimes in other spaces, it's hard to explore some of those deeper feelings of disappointment, frustration, and anxiety. And I think another big one that we haven't touched on, if you want to touch on it.
Which one?
Power struggle.
So this is one I would say I don't experience as much in the playroom, but I know parents experience a lot. So when I'm using this skill, the idea that we're giving them a sense of control, and often when I'm talking to parents get a little apprehensive of that idea of their child getting more control, because they already feel a little out of control within the parent-child relationship. But to empower your child to have more control can feel like, are we going to input more sense of power struggles between myself and my child? And in reality, what we find is that choice giving does the opposite. Because you give your child a sense of control, and you're not always in control, and you're conveying to them that you trust them, that will lessen the power struggle between parent and child, or you and the child. Because I can't say I've never gotten in a power struggle with a kid in the playroom. It has happened. I have some kiddos that I see that a sense of control is really maybe their ultimate theme within all relationships, all spaces, all environments. So, that could come up in the play space too, of who's going to win out here. It's just not as common in the playroom as it is with parents at home.
Yeah.
And so the nice thing about the idea of giving choices is that you lessen those power struggles. And when we get to the how, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, about how do you lessen power struggles, because you can facilitate power struggles if you want to, if you kind of dig in to certain choices, and there's not flexibility. Because I will say choice giving does require you as the therapist to have quite a bit of flexibility, and the parent to have some flexibility in the moment. But when we first learn this skill, I think we tend to be more rigid around it. And what I'm trying to get at is sometimes we'll give choices and then we will only stick in those two choices. And I know when it's often talked about, that's how it's talked about. But sometimes a kid will come up with a choice that's equally as acceptable. But if I stick, nope, that's not one of the choices I gave you, right? Then you're sticking in that idea of, I want to struggle with you in power, instead of being like, that's a choice too. That would be an okay option.
You chose to do
and
that.
So yeah, you chose to do that, or you found another solution, right? So then you're kind of empowering them in those moments, instead of getting stuck in the struggle of, I need to be in control, instead of saying, this is a way for us to have shared power. Yeah. And part of having shared power is that they may be able to come up with some of the solutions, not you always being in charge of the solution.
And I think that sometimes that can feel very anxiety producing for the play therapist, and also for the caregiver, whether it be the teacher or, I think there's something about that we've equated children listening to adults or abiding by what we say with respect. But I don't always I also think that somehow if I give my children a choice and they choose something else, I think sometimes it feels as if they're not being respectful. And in reality, what they're doing is trying to find a solution that works for them where they feel in control. And so trying to decipher for myself, is this because I'm anxious that they're not listening, or that I'm not doing it right in the playroom, or that someone else is going to get upset by these choices. I think this happened to me, and I've shared this story on here, and this may go into the how, but we will delve into that a little deeper later. But one of the things that we talked about in Dr. Lander's class a lot, and it'll be interesting because we were in the same class, Kristie, so maybe you experienced.
We were. That's where Maggie and I met.
Yes. And so it may have been
sat next to each other in Dr. Lander's class.
We did.
Many moons ago.
Many, long time ago. But I remember specifically like toy guns. It felt like a hard and fast rule that you're not for shooting. At least that's how I experienced it. You didn't experience it that way. I'm also a big like rule follower. And so we were in supervision and watching a session, and a child shot me. And I guess by my body language and stuff, it didn't bother me. But then I said, like, I choose not to be shot. Or I don't even know if I put the choice, but I'm not for shooting. It was more of a limit, I guess. But they kind of looked at me and they're like, you don't seem, why'd you say that? And I was like, well, I thought I had to, as opposed to it bothered, right? So it's also kind of understanding, what are you okay with to be choices in the space? And what is your hesitancy to the child picking a choice that perhaps you did not present? If that, like, so I'm having to decipher those things for myself in those moments. Where is this hesitancy or anxiety coming from on my part? And is it something that is going to really like infringe on the child's ability to be free in these spaces? So it's a lot of sometimes.
Well, and I think it's also understanding the purpose of the behavior, right? Like, is a choice needed here? Or if I can identify the purpose, then I may not need to use a choice. And I think as you become a more seasoned play therapist and really tune your like attuning ability, you get better at understanding the purpose of behavior and being able to convey that to the child. And sometimes that limits needing to put choices or limits in the playroom, because as a child feels more heard and understood, right? As they feel more heard and understood, then they don't need to convey through a power-seeking behavior at times.
Yeah. So I think
sometimes my brain moves faster than my mouth, Maggie.
Oh, 100,000.
And I take lots of pauses. I'm sorry to our listeners, because what's happening is my brain is like going and I'm trying to catch up to my thoughts. Sorry.
No, I think, and I'm like writing notes to myself so that we stay on track and like, okay, go back to this. So, but I do think so that, are there other things that are the why behind it that we haven't touched on that we should?
No, I don't think so. I think we've tackled them all, but that doesn't mean that there's not other whys out there. I think the key ones have been.
I think this is a very helpful. I know that we're kind of short on time.
Oh, I gotta go.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Bye, y'all. So sorry.
And we're on social media. So let us know, email us, and we're going to send you one-sheeters. We care about you. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Okay. Bye, Kristie.